So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, broadcast and recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new media and baseball capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Sorry, folks, I'm not quite ready to start today. Bear with me for just a second. Skinny bitch. Skinny bitch. Skinny bitch. I don't know. Just saying the name of my guest book series is a little difficult for a guy who doesn't like to cuss in mixed company. I keep telling myself that today's show is a license to let go, but it just isn't that easy. Rory Freedman and Kim Barnounin are the co-authors of 3 books whose titles start with Skinny Bitch. The original Skinny Bitch, the first sequel, Skinny Bitch in the Kitch, and the latest release, Skinny Bitch Bun in the Oven. The books are, at their core, diet guides with a strong vegan slant. But what gets your attention is the tone, the attitude, the cold, hard slap in the face. I've written or co-authored 9 books myself, including The Corporate Athlete, which was a diet guide itself, with Jack Groppel. But I never imagined I could get away with titling a chapter, Don't Be a Pussy. Rory and Kim, welcome to Mr. Media.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you guys here. I got to jump in with this question. When did skinny bitch become a term of endearment for either of you?
One of the things that Kim and I pride ourselves on is not taking ourselves too seriously. And we both think that we've got great senses of humor, and we're really passionate about food and diet and nutrition and making a difference in people's lives. So when we decided that we were going to write a book about diet and nutrition, we thought, why does it have to sound like a stiff, clinical, hard-to-read, hard-to-digest diet book? Why not have some fun with it? Why not make it really easy to understand? And we both read tons of information about diet and nutrition. It can be really boring and hard to get through, but we appreciate learning all that stuff. So we just thought if we could package it in a way that makes it fun and easy to read, more people are going to read it and learn about this stuff.
What kind of reactions did you get when the first book originally came out to the title and just some of the language in the book?
I think we initially were sort of laughing at ourselves like, oh, are we going to be able to pull this off? Can we say these things? But the response has been really amazing and supportive, and I would definitely say that, with all the emails that we get, so many people love the tone and love the language and love the way it's written because they feel like it's their friend talking to them, and they finally get that, so to speak, wake-up call. So definitely there's a few people that are put off, but for the most part, people really embrace it and think it's funny.
I'm still getting the hang of using the word bitch. As a matter of fact, someone suggested I just refer to it as skinny B, but I won't go that far. It's just strange. I'm married. I've got a daughter who's just about 12, and we were playing Uno at the table the other day, and my wife got upset because my daughter just beat the pants off of her at the game, and my wife went, bitch! And I looked at her like, I can't believe you said that, but here we are having this conversation. Are there any other such terms that you guys toss around with such ease?
It's not like Kim and I sit around having lunch and calling each other a skinny bitch. People are often asking us, what does the title mean? And, what is a skinny bitch? And the truth is, it doesn't mean anything. We decided to call the book Skinny Bitch because we wanted people to read it. We really are passionate about diet and nutrition. We both used to eat terribly. And when I mean terribly, or when I say terribly, I mean terribly. I used to literally eat Burger King 7 days a week when I was 17 years old. I would have a bacon double cheeseburger, small fries, small Coke every day. And Kim, I used to watch her eat sausage out of a can on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah. So, it came in a can. I was interested in it.
And once we both changed our diets, we started to feel so much different. And we both used to be not only physically not feeling well, but really negative, miserable, unhappy people and very selfish and self-absorbed. And for whatever reason, once we started changing our own diets, this magic happened in our lives, and things really shifted for both of us. And once we realized what the power of a healthy diet was, we really felt strongly that we wanted to share it with everyone else. And we just thought, well, what's the temperament of this day and age? People don't necessarily want to read a book that says how to be healthy or how to eat right. So we just sort of took a look around and saw what was popular and what was going on and said, let's just speak to that voice. Let's call the book Skinny Bitch and get people to read what we have to say. And it doesn't mean anything to us. You know, if we are pressed for a definition, what to us Skinny Bitch is all about is eating well, but really enjoying food and loving yourself as a result, no matter what size you are or how much you weigh. So that is, to us, the definition of a skinny bitch.
Well, I'm just looking online, and I see that since the day that you each of you dropped, one of you dropped Burger King and one of you dropped sausages, that the stock value of Burger King and the sausage makers has plummeted. So, you know, I'd be watching my back if I were either of you. So if we have Skinny Bitch, I mean, are there any fat bastards in either of your lives?
No. We have healthy bastards in our lives, thanks to us. But we are, of course,
aiming at chef.
Yeah. He actually taught me a thing or two about cooking, so that was nice.
Yes, and I'm single, but you know, I would date only healthy bastards, that's for sure.
Or she'd turn him into a healthy bastard when she was done with him.
That's right.
Got it. Folks, if you've got a question for Rory Freedman or Kim Barnouin, co-authors of the Skinny Bitch books, give us a call, 646-595-3135. It's interesting, you know, just in the last couple of months, I've been putting out word about interviews I'll be doing on places like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, Plaxo. This is the first interview where I actually got comments from the posting that the interview was coming, and I wanted to share some of this with you. Gina wrote in, "That book changed my lady friend's life. She's a vegan now because of a chapter on factory farms and other atrocities." And then she says, "I already was a vegan." And JJ Blue wrote, "Yay for veganism." Veganism. And the one dissenter in the group was Rick, who said, "I tried vegetarianism. It didn't take. Couldn't figure out enough nutritional solutions." So just wanted to share that with you. I was quite impressed that since yesterday that people actually responded to one sentence announcing you guys would be here.
And that's so great
one of the things, we've been really fortunate that, and this, Kim and I always, it's like a taste great, less filling. We try to out-compliment each other. You know, Kim did the research and I did the writing for the book, and there are two things that our readers always say when they email us, and we've gotten thousands of emails from all over the world because the book has been translated into 20 languages. And the one thing is that they read the book in one sitting because it was just easy to read and fun. And Kim always tries to make me feel good about that, and she says, "That's your writing." And then the other thing they say is, "I cannot believe the things I've learned in this book. I've read every diet book. I've tried everything. Nothing's ever worked, and I cannot believe I thought I was eating a healthy diet, and what I learned from reading this book." And Kim did an incredible job researching Skinny Bitch. When we decided to write the book, the deal was that I was going to write and Kim was going to research, and neither one of us could bear to do the other one's job. And the things that she dug up and found were so amazing. And, you know, we really take it seriously. It's a big responsibility to advise people on how to eat. And we wanted to make sure we were doing right by them. And Kim she really just researched her fingers to the bone, and we cited, I think, over 100 sources for the first book. We've got more than 250 endnotes, and it's a really safe and sound diet. And it's changing people's lives all over the world.
And I just also have to throw in, too, that if Rory hadn't have written it the way she did, it wouldn't have gotten such the response, because it's just so clever and funny. And even though it's been out for the number of years that it has, I still read it and I still laugh out loud. So I just have to say that she did, with my information, she turned it into the most, brilliant, hysterical piece of artwork. I love it.
Aw, thanks, Kim.
I was kind of curious, based on your backgrounds, Rory, you were once an agent for Ford Models. I was kind of curious, how did people talk around the office out of earshot of the models, about the models?
People always want to know that stuff, and they want something juicy or, it's boring to say that, it wasn't what you think or what you would imagine. The models that I worked with were 20 years and older. So they weren't the young, crazy drama models that you're always hearing about with drug problems or eating disorders. They were really, beautiful, confident women. I also worked with plus-size models who loved their bodies and loved their curves, and they wore sizes 12, 14, and 16. The things we would complain about is that they were being a pain in the ass, calling and asking for us to do things for them that we didn't feel like we wanted to do. But nobody would talk about their weight or their body or anything like that. For our plus-size models, we would actually have to chastise them if they lost weight because the clients don't want anything smaller than a 12, and a 12 was even pushing it on the small side.
Now, could a plus-size model conceivably be a skinny bitch at heart?
Yes, absolutely. Again, it has nothing to do with how much you weigh or what size you wear. It's whether or not you love food and eat well and treat your body like a temple.
And Kim, I want to ask you the flip side of this. You were once a model. Was there a time when being called a skinny bitch would have caused you to kind of tighten a Jersey girl fist and put an eye out?
I've actually always been a skinny bitch. I just had those genes my whole life, so I never had to go through that horrible time and pressure of being a young model and having to lose weight. I was unhealthy, but I was thin. So, no, I probably would have been horrified, though, to have been called that because I was really, as a teenager growing up in high school, being so skinny and tall, it was absolutely mortifying. Now, of course, I can appreciate it, but back then it was a little hard.
And you guys make a differentiation between being, and now I'm having fun using the term, I guess, but between being a skinny bitch and being one of these girls no, that's not me, and being one of these teenage girls who's like throwing up and going through all that stuff. Can you want to make clear the difference here?
Oh, yes, gladly. Again, for the umpteenth time, we wrote the book to inform people about food and what's going on with our food and how food gets from A to Z, which is on our plates. And the last thing we're trying to encourage is eating disorders or that thin is the ideal to strive for. When we are talking about weight, we have to say that being thin is definitely better than being overweight, and that's not a very politically correct thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because I care and we care. When you're overweight, you're at a higher risk for all sorts of diseases, including cancer, including diabetes, including heart disease, and it's much better to be an ideal weight and on the thin side, and that's unfortunate. But we're not talking about being thin because our society says that it looks better. Yes, we'll use that message to hook people in to read the book, and we understand that people want to lose weight, so we talk about looking good. But the goal for us is to get people to really learn about food and to make those better decisions.
Well, let's talk about the general diet philosophy in the Skinny Bitch books. It's easy to say it's all about veganism, but that kind of simplifies it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that, that's sort of trying to put it in a little category, and I think what we're really trying to say is, yes, this is a lifestyle that we follow, and it's changed our health and our life immensely, but if you can, realize what the premise of the diet is, and that's just really eating, whole natural food, and it's, like me when I was eating things from a can, it's about, making fresh food instead of, having a frozen dinner or opening up from a can, and trying to pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth and eating whole grains, nuts and seeds, legumes, fruits, vegetables.
Yeah, I do think it's frustrating when people will try and just classify it as a vegan book. There's so much more there. We talk about so many other things, which I'm sure you'll get to and cover. So I won't list them now. But there's, to say it's just about veganism is really doing a disservice to the book and to people who may potentially read the book but who won't because they're afraid it's just about veganism. There's really so many other things going on in the book. I will just briefly talk about soda and coffee, because so many people in our country are obsessed with and addicted to soda and coffee, and we do talk about those two things in detail.
To me, I think of all the things that you encourage people to give up, I think giving up soda would be the toughest. I think, just speaking for myself, I've gotten my lifelong habit down to maybe about 6 ounces at lunch, and that's about all I'll allow myself. So for me, that's a big improvement. But people who are dieting, they always seem to connect. Well, I got to have a Diet Coke because it's diet. I can remember working in college at a movie theater, and we'd have these big women come up and get the big bucket of popcorn with the butter, and then they'd want the really big Diet Coke. And I just would think, okay, I think there's a disconnect here between the meaning of diet and portions and stuff. But am I wrong? I mean, I would think Coke is just, or sodas in general, is really tough for people to give up.
It does seem to be. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then I'll let you talk about the in-depth thing. I was just going to say that it depends on the person. I mean, for you, soda may be your Achilles heel. Somebody else may say it's coffee. Somebody else may say it's, dairy products. I think that everybody's addiction is different.
Right, that's true. I think definitely, I know a lot of people that have said, too, that if the one thing that they sort of change, and that's, even if it's one, serving of soda a day that they gave up and substituted for some water, just, week by week or month by month, making little changes like that really seem to help, transition them out of having so much soda. And they noticed just so much of a difference in their health. And, of course, your waistline, because there's nothing in soda but sugar.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we encourage people to try first, because people who really want to change their diet, and it's hard for them, once you start making small changes or big changes in your diet, depending on your soda addiction, it really influences the rest of your diet and the rest of your choices, and it makes things easier. So if you're drinking soda all day, every day, it's affecting everything. It's affecting your body. It's affecting your taste buds. It's affecting your brain and your neurotransmitters. So when you can get rid of the soda, things that you would never want to eat, like fruits and vegetables, probably aren't so appealing to a lot of people who drink soda. But if you can get rid of the soda, then those other foods start looking better to you. You can maybe switch out your soda and drink water instead, and that really does change everything. And then it makes other things that you need to do with your diet easier and more feasible.
Is there a short course, like a fast start kind of way to get on the Skinny Bitch diet? Some things to do at first, and then step up to this, and then step up to that?
The first thing is read the book.
yeah, right. It's true. I think that people really need to inform themselves, just really try to get a broad overview of what it is that we're saying and why. And I think, once you sort of have the background information as to why, we're saying let's, give up this, and it's, this is going to be bad for you, and this is how it's made and why, it empowers you because you actually understand, oh, I get it now, and it's not just about giving up food, it's just replacing the foods that you're eating, for a better kind of food.
And I think that that's something we hear all the time, too, in our emails, is I never in a million years thought I would be saying this, but now I can't stand the thought of even eating X, Y, or Z. So, the information is so powerful, and it really does inspire and motivate change that people can't imagine eating things that were previously their favorite foods because they learn exactly what it is or what it's doing to their body. And once you can visualize that and envision the change it's having, you really don't want to put it in your mouth or in your body after that. And I think as far as answering your question for the short track,
a
lot of people will read the book in one sitting, and then they'll say, that's it. I'm following everything you've outlined here. Every single thing rang true for me, and I'm going to do it all, and I'm starting now. For other people, they'll say, I love everything you said. This or this didn't really appeal to me, but I think everything else was spot on, and I'm going to try that now. Other people will say, I love everything you said. I want to do it all, but I can't do it all at once. So this week we're going to try, my family, to start replacing soda with water. And that's the one thing we're going to do for this month. And then next month we're going to add something else on. So we talk about in the book doing things incrementally, and we sort of lay out a little plan for people who don't want to do things all at once but want to take it slow.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, for someone like myself, that's the way I would kind of approach it, is to do it in sections and slowly adapt to it. And what about, people who, I mean, you start a diet and you get into it. A lot of people will jump into these things, and a lot of people jump on fad diets, and they suddenly do them all the time, and then in a couple of weeks they fall off the wagon. I know what I worked on. I mentioned in this book before. I worked on a book called The Corporate Athlete, and the guy I helped with that book, Jack Groppel, his attitude was the 80-20 rule. If you do the right things 80% of the time, you can fall off 20% because then you'll get back to the 80%. Is there a fallback here, or is it all or nothing?
Well,
I
that sounds
think
like a great plan.
Yeah, Rory and I are both, when people say, do you guys have, slip-ups, like, what are your weaknesses? I think for both of us is that we love food and we eat really well all the time, and we love treats. So I think we just know that when we eat well, the majority of the time, that when we're eating, I love to bake. That's my favorite thing, is to make muffins and cupcakes and cookies. And they're also made with, better ingredients. But, yeah, we definitely think it's, sort of moderation and balance, but that does sound like a really good, and something that people can, aspire to.
And here's the thing, is that this is a lifestyle. So it's not like, here's a 21-day diet, or, here's a 2-week fast. This is a lifestyle. So you can eat however you want to eat and follow the lifestyle. You can have 3 bad days in a row where you eat garbage, but if this is the lifestyle that you're living, then you're going to always come back to it. So maybe at the beginning, when you're retraining your brain and your taste buds, if you are a soda junkie and you decide, for the next 2 weeks I'm going to not drink a single thing of soda and try and get it out of my system and see if I can kick the habit, we certainly wouldn't recommend within those 2 weeks having a glass of soda. That's going to set you back and re-trigger your addiction. But, let's say you give up soda and, for 3 months you don't drink a single glass of soda, and then you're out one night and you say, you know what, I want a glass of soda, and you have it, big deal. It's already ingrained in you that you're not a soda drinker anymore, so if you want to try it, you try it.
Let's talk about another element of this, and that is that comes from the chapter, The Myths and Lies About Protein. What's the main story there? What have we been lied to about protein?
Well, especially when we had that whole episode of the Atkins diet, when people were loading up on protein and skipping the carbs, and that was such a big thing. And I knew so many people that were on that diet, and it's really disturbing. And I remember talking to a few nurses who my mom knew, and they were saying, it's amazing that the same time all this came along with the Atkins diet and the high-protein diet, we've been getting all of these people in the hospitals with kidney problems. And I thought, you know what, there's a light that went off, and I started researching, and I found out that a high-protein diet is actually really harmful to your kidneys, and especially if you're diabetic, too. It's, they're at a higher risk of having kidney problems. So
I think that something else we're always constantly hearing, for people who aren't on the high-carb or the high-protein diets, people are always asking, well, how do you get your protein? And it's just a myth that in our country we've perpetuated that we need these high amounts of protein. And it's just not true. We can actually get more than enough protein by eating nothing other than fruit, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. Literally, that's all we need to get adequate protein. And that's going to be more than enough, and we're not going to be taxing our kidneys in the meantime.
Yeah, I think we're one of the countries with the highest intakes of protein, and there's so many other countries that consume a lot less, and they're actually so much healthier than we are. And that's, of course, the biggest question that you ask vegans or vegetarians. My God, how do you get your protein? And it's so laughable now at this point, but there's plenty of other ways to get, healthy protein.
I know several of my daughter's friends. I never encountered this in school because that was so many years ago. But my daughter has, 4 or 5 friends in middle school who are vegan, and over the years of getting to know these kids and how they get protein and it's just there are other ways to do it. It's not the way I've chosen, but I certainly get that. Now, what about? Tell me about meat, because I think it goes beyond just saying meat's bad. I mean, you guys have done some research. You've learned about this, and it seems like you're pretty disgusted with the way we raise animals for meat, and this has really become a campaign item.
Well, this can be a really divisive issue, so I want to invite everybody to just allow themselves to listen and keep their brain open, because I know it's really easy for that knee-jerk muscle memory thing to kick in and just say, oh, forget it, I'm not going to do that, it's not for me. So, and I get that because I was entirely one of those people. And then one day I was in college and I got a magazine in the mail, and it talked about factory farming and slaughterhouses. And up until that point, I had never bothered to think about how cows and chickens and pigs went from living, feeling animals to food. And in that moment, reading that magazine, I saw these pictures and I read these things, and it's still burned in my mind today. And I'm just going to briefly tell you 3 of the pictures I saw. I think I envisioned previously that animals were running around on these green pastures and living these beautiful, idyllic farm lives, and that's not what I saw in these pictures. The first one was a picture of a cow and her calf, and they were taken to a livestock auction. And when the calf was taken away from its mom, the mom was so disturbed and so upset and so freaked out by this that she started ramming herself against the stall door from which the calf was taken through. And in doing so, she broke her own neck. She was still alive, but she was left lying there in a puddle of mud with her neck askew and her tongue hanging out of the side of her mouth and her eyes bulging out of her head. But because she and her calf were just viewed as commodities, nothing was done for her. She was just left lying there alive with a broken neck and a puddle of mud. The other image was of those little yellow baby chicks, the ones that we see in a lot of ads around Easter time. Mm-hmm. These guys were just 1 or 2 days old, and they were alive, but because they were males, they were useless to the egg farmers, so they were thrown into a clear plastic garbage bag and piled into a green dumpster. And they were all alive, and they were thrown away like trash to die. And the final image that I will never forget is a cow. There's something called downers in the food industry, and these are animals that are too sick or too injured to walk. And now with all of the stuff that's been going on with mad cow disease and the beef recall that we had with the Hallmark slaughterhouse, downers are no longer allowed in the food chain, but a lot of people who work within the industry say that this is not going to change and that these animals are still going to make their way into the food chain because there's just not enough inspectors and there's not enough integrity at these processing plants. But in this instance, this cow was too sick or too injured to walk. She was on the back of a flatbed truck, and one end of a chain was tied around the leg of this cow, and the other end of this chain was tied around a stationary post just behind the truck. And the cow was offloaded from the truck when the truck drove away. So in that moment, I made the decision that I could never contribute to anything along those lines ever again as long as I lived, and call myself an animal lover. And my first thought after how horrible these animals were treated is, oh gosh, is this going to be healthy? How am I going to get my protein? And the more research I did and the more I learned, the more I realized, oh my gosh, it's actually healthier. There's so many diseases that are linked to eating animal products, and these diseases are the #1 killers in our country: heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. And vegetarians and vegans have lower instances of all 3 dramatically. So I made the decision to become a vegetarian, and I can honestly say it was the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Rebecca.
You guys paint,
because of Rory. Rory did that for me too. I was in a place where I was not ready to go in that direction either, and then really between her just sort of informing me and then getting a catalog in the mail, seeing the same images, that got me too.
Well, and I mean, without a doubt, someone can't listen to the descriptions of events and the handling of animals without thinking twice. What always surprised me about this is, excuse me, no matter how many times we hear and see these images, people still continue to eat meat in great numbers. Are you ever surprised that those stories and that argument doesn't win over more people? I mean, it's very, it's very compelling, and yet, we haven't really changed, at least in this country, our habits in large numbers.
I know for my own life, I know Rory's got such an amazing thing to say about this too, but I know personally, people are so afraid to know the truth, and they've figured that once they know the truth, then that's it. It's going to harm them so bad that they probably know that they're not going to be able to eat meat again, so they'd rather not know. And unfortunately, that seems to be the case with a lot of people that I know, is they just want to bury their head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I was going to say just the same thing, Kim. I mean, people just don't want to know. Change is painful, and as a whole, we'd all rather just keep doing what we're doing and not have our little bubble disturbed in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's unfortunate that people take this approach. So, and it's not surprising. It's just disappointing, and it's disappointing on so many levels. First and foremost, these animals, and when I say these animals, I mean 10 billion land animals every year in the United States alone, are being tortured and slaughtered in the cruelest, most unspeakable ways. And it's really unfortunate for them that people will not learn the truth. It's also unfortunate for people because it really is harmful to our health, and it's also really damaging to the environment. And the United Nations issued a 400-page report, and they named animal agriculture as the #1 contributor to methane emissions, and that's beating out all of transportation combined. So when we say, I'm an environmentalist, I drive a Prius, actually switching to a plant-based diet is better than switching from a Hummer to a Prius for the environment.
It's funny you made that connection, because while you were talking and you were saying that this is difficult for people to make that move, I was actually thinking of the oil-based economy, and that if we're as we're hearing in the latter half of this year, a lot of people suddenly talking about the need to move away from oil and gas and onto other alternatives, that maybe there's hope for lessening the meat-eating population. I don't know.
I do think we're seeing a shift in that direction, and I know it's easy to say when you live in a city like Los Angeles, and it's different, I'm sure, in smaller cities or smaller towns in Middle America. But I do see a shift, and I think just by the letters that we're receiving or the emails we're receiving, people are growing increasingly interested in their health and the environment, and people are waking up. I mean, just with the meat recall that I mentioned earlier, 143 or 134 million pounds of meat, the largest recall of meat in American history. And I think people now are learning more. People saw on CNN, on all these other news channels, it's not just, what people like to think of as a bunch of crazy animal rights activists running around talking about these issues. These are mainstream events now that the public is catching on to, and these are not isolated incidents. This is what goes on in slaughterhouses, and people are waking up and seeing that, and they're trying to do better in their own lives. People, I believe, when they do know the truth, they want to do better.
Are you guys involved with PETA?
I am. I love PETA. I think they're a great group, and I know they have a bad rap, and I'm happy to say that they're an excellent group doing a lot of great things.
Definitely. I definitely support them as well.
So now that I've moved us into politics briefly, is there a political candidate that either one of you or both of you might support that you found is supportive of the things that you're for? I
could not say enough about how much I am horrified by Sarah Palin's policy on animal issues and on the environment. So just because we're speaking about animals right now, I'll go straight there. She is an absolute nightmare when it comes to animals. She supported aerial hunting of wolves. She's obviously a huge hunter in her own life, so she's killing animals for sport and food in cold blood, and thinking that sort of makes her more identifiable with the rest of the American public, where, hey, I'm just a hockey mom and I go out and shoot animals. I don't know a single mother who goes out and shoots animals. I think that all the moms that I know are filled with compassion for living things and living beings, and they don't go out and shoot somebody in cold blood. Also, she doesn't believe, it's been said that she doesn't believe that the environmental destruction that we're seeing now is human-related. So she is not getting my vote, and she's not even getting a nod from me.
Yeah, absolutely not. Me neither.
Is there anyone that you... Okay, so we know who you're against.
Obama all the way.
Absolutely.
Obama all the way.
Okay, just curious, just checking.
Proud to say it. Yes, absolutely.
Not trying to tip the balance here in one way or the other. Just curious. Let's come back to the diet. In addition to being anti-meat, I can't believe I'm going to say this, so bear with me here if I stutter. The chapter in the original book, Skinny Bitch, there's a chapter called "The Dairy Disaster," and it starts out. This is the first line. Go suck your mother's tits. Now, I have to say, I don't think I've ever read the word tits in a less flattering sentence, and I don't think I'll be able to look at a naked breast for days, maybe weeks. What is this chapter all about?
Well, it's really basic and simple, and I think the first sentence says it all. We are a country that's obsessed with dairy. We think we need dairy for calcium and protein and vitamins and minerals. Here's the thing. We are human beings, and we're mammals, and every mammal on the planet nurses their young, then they wean them from their milk, and then they never give them their milk again. We're the only species on the planet that drinks milk as adults, and we're the only species on the planet that drinks the milk of another species. The only reason that we do this is because the dairy industry has told us that we need it. And the truth is, studies from Harvard, Yale, Penn State, and the National Institutes of Health all told us that dairy did not have a positive influence on bone health. And after looking at 34 different studies from 16 different countries, researchers at Yale found that the countries that had the highest intake of meat and dairy had the highest instances of osteoporosis.
And also the fact that by the time we're about 18 months of age to 4 years old, we lose 90 to 95% of the enzyme lactase, is what we need to digest lactose that's in milk. So basically our bodies are saying, okay, so you've breastfed, you've done your growing, you're healthy, congratulations, now you can move on. And we're just basically trying to go against what our body is telling us. And so instead we have, Lactaid, and we take supplements so that we can still drink milk. But even though we're having allergies and health problems from it, we're still just getting forced to drink this from our doctors. And, it's no wonder they had about 3 hours of nutrition training in medical school. So I think that people are very surprised by the dairy information. I think when I was, doing the research on this one as well, and just, so much of what Rory knew, that it's so, it's amazing that you can get calcium from so many other foods, and it's, just like eating your greens and, kale and collard greens and soybeans and tofu and seeds and raw nuts, and fortified, orange juice or soy or rice milk, and that's how you can get enough calcium.
I think something that really shocked me that you dug up, Kim, in the dairy chapter that I really always go back to. It's really interesting how we all, of course, listen to our doctors and dietitians and nutritionists, and unfortunately, they're all getting the same information that we've all gotten our whole lives, and it happens to be the wrong information, and it happens to be misinformation that's often funded by the dairy industry. And we just keep recycling the wrong information around, and we always think, well, why? Why is that? And I know you just mentioned that, most doctors only have 3 hours of training in nutrition during their entire time in medical school. And when it comes to, I remember learning in school when I was a kid about dairy and that I needed dairy for my bones to be strong. And then one of the things that Kim uncovered during her research was that the schools literally get teaching kits from the dairy industry to teach kids about milk and why we should be drinking milk. And that's really, we have to remember, and it's become so pervasive that it's even hard to look at it this way, but milk is a product like any other product. It's just like Nike or Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but none of those groups are allowed to come into our school and hand our teachers a teaching model or a learning kit with handouts and posters about their products. But we allow the milk industry to come in and do that in our schools because we've all agreed on some crazy level 1,000 years ago that milk is good for us and that our kids need it. And we're doing ourselves and our kids a disservice by allowing this to continue.
And I think if we also... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you guys need to set aside some money from your royalties to create a skinny bitch lobbyist.
It's in the works. It's in the works.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry I interrupted. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Oh, that's okay. I was just wanting to say also as a quick end note on the dairy that, let's think about what you're drinking, and let's think about, that we're not just farmers, in this time where, we have Bessie the cow out back and we just, give him a nice little pet and then get some milk and then go into the kitchen. Like, these are animals from factory farms, and, if you were listening to what Rory was saying about how the animals are treated, but also what we're giving to the animals to prevent illness, since there's so many animals being housed in the factory farms. So when you're drinking, milk or having dairy products, you're ingesting antibiotics, pesticides, steroids, and hormones. So whatever they're giving the animals, you're getting it not only in the meat, but in the milk and the cheese as well. So bon appetit.
No. Well, I want to say, of course, the first Skinny Bitch book that had that line that I can't even repeat again about dairy, that was written before the new release, which is Skinny Bitch Bun in the Oven. What is your attitude towards actual breastfeeding for newborns?
Oh, my gosh. We are
so
biggest breastfeeding supporters on the planet, and Kim and I both have agreed if we could only have pregnant women, walk away with one thing from our book, Skinny Bitch Bun in the Oven, we hope that it'll be the desire to breastfeed. There's nothing you can do for your child that will set him or her up for success and health in their life like breastfeeding. It's the best thing that you can do for not only for your baby but for yourself. And I know Kim can talk about some of the health benefits for the baby, but for the mom, obviously what's good for the baby is good for the mom. For the mom, we're going to see you're going to go back to your pre-pregnancy weight sooner. Your uterus is going to shrink better because of the breastfeeding. It actually stimulates contractions in the uterus. It's also going to ensure a bond between the mother and the baby. And it sounds silly, but it's actually a really important thing. And it also is just good for slowing the mom down and saying, okay, there's nothing I can do now. I can't rush around the house trying to get the baby's clothes washed. I can't run around making bottles and doing all this crazy stuff. Like, I just have to be here right now with the baby. And it's an important time for moms to just slow down and relax and let go.
Right, and those are such good points. And, being a mom myself, I know that for me that was just such the greatest time that I had with my son, and I'm still doing it now to, ensure his health. And, breastfed babies have higher IQs. They have fewer ear infections. It strengthens your immune system. They have less diarrhea and constipation. And for the big ones, they have a decreased risk for childhood cancers, diabetes, food allergies, obesity, and rheumatoid arthritis. So I think that it's just so important that if we can just have the best start for our children, this would be something that we can do. So, we have the control over it. We really want to try to get it out there to women to please, open your minds, dispel any maybe previous negative thoughts you had about breastfeeding, and just be open to the possibility of doing this for your baby.
Yeah, a lot of women will say things like, oh, well, it's just not my thing. And Kim and I just want to, break a bottle over our own heads when people say that. It's not your thing. You just had a baby, and you're the only person on the planet now that is in this position to do this thing for this baby. And it's, the whole reason that you are walking around with boobs your whole life was for this moment. This is why women have breasts, is to feed their children.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I thought it was for my entertainment.
That's what they think.
A lot of men think that, but no. That's just the bonus of breasts.
Well, that is a bonus. That's definitely a bonus. Let me ask you this. Have you taken a position on when women should discontinue breastfeeding? Because some, it seems to go on an awful long time.
I think it's really has to be for the woman, for the mom to decide what's best for her. I know for me personally, my son is going to be 2 in a few months, and I'm still doing it, and I'll probably stop when he's 2 years old. But I really think that it's a personal thing, and even if you can only breastfeed for a short time, that is already going to make such a big difference. So just, moms should just, talk to your husband, talk to your doctor, your family, whatever your gut instinct tells you, and see how it goes with the baby. And I know that it took my son and I a little bit of time in the beginning to sort of get the hang of it, but there is such amazing lactation consultants, and the hospital that I delivered in had someone work with me, and the nurses are well educated. There's so much help out there to help you, figure out how to do this. So, I think it's just really up to you. It's kind of a personal thing, but do the best that you can and the longest that you can.
Now, a lot of people write sensationalistic diet books that the public will later learn were not founded in science. And I'm thinking that motherhood isn't a time for guesswork or fads. How can new moms feel confident of the veracity of your claims and advice in Bun in the Oven?
Oh, my gosh. Kim broke the mold on this book. We realized really what a great responsibility this was. For this book, we've literally have more than 300 sources, over 500 endnotes. So this isn't stuff we just said, hey, I think that people should eat this way. Do you want to write about that? This is, again, really well-founded scientific evidence that we're talking about here. We also had the book vetted by a registered dietitian, and we also had a foreword provided by not only an OBGYN but also a pediatrician. And the diet that we're outlining in this book is not just some crazy radical thing. It's been deemed safe by the American Medical Association, the American Dietetic Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Academy of Sciences. So, again, it's just something that we really took seriously, and we didn't toy around with. It's all science here.
And, of course, our beloved Dr. Spock, in his 7th edition of his, of course, famous book that even my mom read, he began advocating a plant-based diet for children. So we really feel strongly that, and so do so many other people and organizations, that this is a very safe way to eat during pregnancy.
Well, this has been really interesting. I understand that you're now working on a male-oriented version of the Skinny Bitch series. I've got to ask if you've got a title yet, and how that book or books will differ from these books.
Well, we have a title. It's coming out, I think, June of 2009, and it's called Skinny Bastard. And it's important for us to make sure that all of our skinny bitches out there have good men in their lives who are eating well and taking care of themselves. So that's a project we're excited about that we're working on as we speak. And I forgot what else we were going to say about that. What did you ask?
Well, how will it differ? How will the program differ?
It's not going to differ much. I mean, when we're talking about healthy eating, we're talking about healthy eating, and men and women aren't all that different when it comes to healthy eating. So the language may be a little bit different. We're not going to call them bitches. We're going to call them bastards, or probably a few other bad words that I won't say now. But it's going to be tailored to a male audience, but the eating plan will mostly be the same.
Will the term mofo come into play in that book?
Oh, you're right about that. I love it.
We got our sassy writer here just plotting things to call men.
I bet that'll be the most fun of the whole series.
I can't wait to hear it.
Well, listen, folks, you can check out the latest book in the Skinny Bitch series, Skinny Bitch Bun in the Oven. It's available at great bookstores everywhere, as well as Amazon.com and MrMedia.com. Also, you can learn more about Rory and Kim at their website. It's skinnybitch.net. Make sure you get the .net part. I haven't checked to see where .com takes you, but I'm guessing it's not there. Yeah, it's sex toys, sex video. Yeah. Sexy older women, that'd be okay. So anyway, skinnybitch.net. And Kim and Rory, thanks so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it very much, and continued good luck, especially with that Skinny Bastard series.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
So, folks, you can, for more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with the creators, stars, writers, and producers of The Cleaner, Star Wars The Clone Wars, SpongeBob SquarePants, Jimmy Neutron, Heroes, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Army Wives, 24, The Big Bang Theory, Bad Santa, Tell Me You Love Me, The Dark Knight, Zits, Baby Blues, and many others. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, or casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen to us on Blog Talk Radio, digitaljournal.com, podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo. Now, we're also now on Podcast Pickle, coming soon to Kindle, or, of course, that old great standby, iTunes. And if you've got an idea for a guest, or you might be a good guest yourself, feel free to email me directly at bob@andelman, ANDELMAN.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing some of your day with Mr. Media. Hope you'll be back real soon. Bye, everybody.